Hello, welcome to Lesson 4. Lesson 4 talks about statistical data, especially from the most recent census um, in 2010. And we're beginning to create the pattern of aging at this point. If you remember in prior lessons, we talked about what sociology is, to provide a foundation of sorts to discuss our sociology subtopic, which is aging. In the last lesson, we provided an overview of aging globally and in the United States, and some of the perspectives of aging and theories of aging and so forth. So in this lesson, we will start the discussion related to, again, population estimates, how the population is growing older, why it's growing older, and so forth. So we will be looking at current census data, projections of census data, and the current status of older adults, specifically in the United States. And we will be doing that in multiple ways. I have 4 primary articles where we'll be reading this lesson. A short article from the Census Bureau that describes the next 40 years or so between now and 2050 and how the data will look in the next 5 decades. We have a document from Health and Human Services on the federal level in terms of a current profile of older Americans in 2011, in terms of how that population looks, risk factors that could be physical risk factors for mental health, could be for quality of life, challenges that older adults face, benefits that they may receive from society, and so forth. It's a 18-page document. A short 2-page press release I've included from the Census Bureau about the our population over the age of 90, which is a fast-growing population due to increasing longevity rates. So when we talk about aging, sometimes we spend so much time talking about those in the 60s and 70-year-old range, and we don't do enough thinking and discussion related to the population that's over 80, 90, and even 100. And finally, we close up the majority of our reading with some population demographics from the state of Virginia. And our state is growing older, just as the rest of the United States. And actually, we are growing older faster than many of the states that we are compared to, basically because Virginia is considered, especially on the coast and in the mountains, a nice retirement area for folks who enjoy scenic beauty and so forth. I've also included a couple of videos. They're somewhat short this lesson. A video on global aging, which is more of a entertaining video graphic of sorts that talks about what global aging looks like and what we can gain from older adults. Also included a interview with an author that has attempted to gather some of the most important insights in his view and lessons that we can learn from older adults, and this idea that the knowledge and experiences and ideas of our older adults are a sacred resource and strength of not only nations but the world, and we need to maybe do a better job of listening to the experiences of the past. Finally, there's a short article I included which includes the life and lessons of a 104-year-old lady. It's a short video to watch, and the lady credits her longevity to good genes, which certainly has a lot to do with having a long life, along with societal factors and physical factors, yes, but the genetic makeup of each of us will have something to say and will impact how long we actually do live. one of the final activities I will be asking folks to take care of as a normal part of the lesson is to review census data, specifically and specific to older adults. Census data that's new as of April 2010. And we'll be looking at population comparisons between states. We'll be looking at how many older adults were male, how many were female, what's their ethnic breakdowns, where do they live and in what states. In terms of population breakdowns, how many are over 50 as opposed to 60, over 70, over 80, and so forth. There's actually 58 pages of this material. It looks like a lot more than it really is. Just spend some time and browsing through the material. You don't have to read every single line, because most of it is actually charts and graphs, to be honest. But take note of the state that you might be from, or Virginia, or your local, the geographic region you might be interested in. And notice and look on the maps that I have provided and the charts, how fast the aging population is growing in some parts of our nation. It's extremely enlightening. And the data that you have in front of you, this census data set, is the same data that's being used to drive aging programs, funding sources. It's being used to create policy related to Medicare and sometimes Medicaid. And folks are making local decisions about how to serve older adults in our communities using this data. So it's extremely important that you do take time to at least browse through the material and look for a couple of items that you do find most interesting. This is a really busy lesson with the reading material I gave you and the videos and such. And it's a bit busier at the end, unfortunately, or fortunately. We do have only one Wiki post this lesson, and I will be asking you to refer back to the census data sets I have provided and spend some time looking at some of the data for Virginia and see if what you know about aging in your own community and what you have observed in the past. Let us know if you've noticed the same thing. Is your community getting older? Is your school or college getting older? How about the hospital setting or the employment setting and the leaders in those agencies? Or those agencies in general just getting older? Is your neighborhood getting older? Are there more older folks in the neighborhood than younger? So let's share some of our own personal experiences about that as we go through the lesson inside of our wiki. The second item you have to do is our first response paper. We have 2 response papers. They're each worth 50 points each. So this is response paper number 1. I want to use these response papers to help students build and construct their research project or research paper that's due at the end of the class. And the topic for this first research or response paper is for you to basically find one topic related to aging that we will be covering this semester. And you can look at all the topics on the lesson outcome sheet that has all the due dates listed and that has our objectives listed beside the topics. You can look at all those topics and pick out a topic that you're most interested in from that list, or you could pick out a topic related to aging that has nothing to do with the items that we're looking at this lesson. Could be totally different, and that's okay as long as it's a topic related to aging. So you might be interested in diabetes in older adults, or you might be interested in why or more older adults moving to North Carolina instead of Florida as they grow older, and items like that. So the purpose of the paper is to tell me what your ideas are, what you might be interested in researching, why that is, what you hope to find out, and so forth. I've also included a scoring rubric of sorts that I will be using to grade the papers. So it's important to write these papers in either MLA or APA format, to include your name, appropriate grammar, spell check, and using citations if you use other resources outside of your own, and so forth. If you have questions about MLA or APA format, hopefully it's being covered in your English class. If not, let me know. I will provide you some resources. Last but not least, and yes, this is a busy lesson, we have our first test. We have 4 tests this semester, and this is your first test. The test is worth 100 points, and there's only 3 questions, 3 short answer questions. And I have provided these short answer questions for you inside of this lesson, so you know what the questions are. The test is open book. You can use any resource you want to, except another person. And my suggestion is to look at the test questions. I have included it inside of this lesson instruction/activity pages, and start thinking about and answering these questions before you go into Blackboard to submit them. I will have you to submit these questions online instead of file attachments, that type of thing. So you take the actual test inside of Blackboard, but I'm giving you the questions in advance. And there's 3 questions, and they go back to 3 of the theories we learned about in our in the second lesson, which was an introduction to sociology. The questions talk about symbolic interactionalism, functionalism, and conflict theory. And those are the 3 major sociology theories, if you remember. And what I'm asking is, how would each of these theories view and interpret the aging process? And each of these theories would say aging is about something else. Each of the 3 theories would not see aging as the same thing. One of the theories might see aging as a negative, as a way for society to push out the older generations to make room for the newer generation. Other theories might say that the aging population contributes to society, that it's an integral part of society, that there are major strengths that the aging population brings to all the other generations. And other theorists, or another one of these theories might say the aging is actually symbolic of the life stages that we as humans go through. And we can take meaning and substance and feel good about this process of aging if we listen to the lessons that's being taught to us. Again, my suggestion is that take these questions, do some research with the material I've given you online, for example, and type these up in Microsoft Word, perhaps. Then when you're ready to submit your test, you can just go into Blackboard, hit copy in Word, then paste in Blackboard, and your answers will be there. I don't suggest answering the question inside of Blackboard because the system does tend to time out, and you may lose your responses if you create something really long. Although I do expect these responses to be less than 4 paragraphs, but usually about 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs, to be honest. So you can tell me what the theory would say about aging, how this theorist would apply the theory to aging, and give me an example or 2 to describe how the theory would deal with aging. So this is a pretty long chapter, well, lesson, for us to work through. And for those of you working ahead, feel free. It will take you some time, but it's a very important lesson. So in the meantime, please let me know if you have questions about the assignment, the paper, the test, any of the videos, and so forth. And I look forward to hearing from you. Take care.